Overthinking
Futurama!
Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Those famous words spoken by Neil Armstrong when the Apollo 11 lunar module first touched down on the moon is where this episode gets its name. The series has landed, a very appropriate title for the second episode of the series, and one that references the moon landing so heavily.
I'd like your opinion on our commercial.
It's easy to forget how old these early episodes are. This was produced in the late 90s, at which point VHS and videotapes in general were still the dominant format for video. By the way, Zoomers, your parents used to watch movies by putting a tape the size of a book into a machine the size of a small sedan. You'd have to rewind it after watching, or risk the wrath of the people at the rental place, and if you were lucky, it would work a dozen times or so before getting all mangled. Appreciate the struggle and cut your folks some slack, would you? Anyway, I got to thinking about why the creators chose to have Futurama's technology be this weird mashup of Star Trek-level advancements combined with slightly more advanced versions of things that we had in the late 90s and early 2000s. And I think the reason is, because this is satire and realism is secondary to the story and the comedy, it's just easier and less time-consuming to show the professor putting a tape in a machine rather than trying to explain whatever futuristic gizmo they'd be playing videos on in the year 3000. Now, I could spend some time discussing why this makes sense in universe, so I will. Society likely went through a technological reset after Bender destroyed civilization and all, which explains why we see a medieval culture rising out of the ashes in the time-lapse of the first episode, and after that point, different forms of technology developed at different rates, so they have spaceships and sentient robots, but haven't yet invented the DVD. And of course, not every bit of technology is destroyed, because Fry is still able to use his debit card and PIN number in that episode where he becomes a billionaire. I was fairly certain this VCR++ label had to be a reference to something, so I did some searching, and you're welcome.
When you want to tape your favorite shows, does it turn into a big production? Not with VCR+, the one-step programmer that works with your VCR and VCR+ codes. Those numbers next to the shows in your TV guide and newspaper.
It truly was a simpler time. The nearly 160-year-old professor employs some Olympic-level skulking out from in front of the screen action here. And speaking of animation details you might not notice unless you're watching each scene on repeat looking for said details, things like the Venusian blob's eyes blinking one at a time in sequence just give this show so much depth and character. When I noticed these ships have what look like shark fins, I went to check if these might be Karkaron ships, which appear much later in the Season 9 episode Zap Dingbat. And it turns out, they're not.
Here's your package, Mr. Horrible Gelatinous Blob.
Good work, Evans.
So if we step into the show's universe for a moment, whoever produced this commercial, who I'm going to assume was human, cast a Venusian blob to play the boss and then named the character Mr. Horrible Gelatinous Blob? That seems insensitive. I mean, come on, man. How would you feel if he cast you to play a character called Mr. Timid Fuzzy Meat Sack on a Bone Frame? This episode only raises more questions about what these things are. The paper makes me think trash can, but the brick makes me think Bender's personal bathroom.
I'm never gonna get used to the 31st century. Caffeinated bacon? Baconated grapefruit?
This episode is positively cruel. Not only are they showing me a reality in which breakfast is provided at work, and sometimes the boss even cooks, but
Caffeinated bacon?
in a world where they have a cure for heart attacks.
Someone come and drop this package to the slot last night.
I have questions about that statement.
Okay, Captain. This is just a standard legal release.
In a 2012 interview with AV Club, actor Phil Lamar, the voice of Hermes, revealed that Hermes wasn't originally Hermes. His name was Dexter, and he was just an overweight accountant who was not Jamaican. Apparently, Dexter wasn't working out too well, which led Lamar to worry about his future with the show, until one day, series co-creator Matt Groening asked if he could do a Jamaican accent. Lamar joked in the interview that Hermes nearly cost him his livelihood, and that he might be serving the interviewer a mocha latte grande if he hadn't been able to do that accent.
Sign the paper.
They sure use a lot of paper in the year 3000, including this wall-mounted... I'm gonna go with 4x4 tic-tac-toe game, because there's no way the months are divided into 4 weeks of 4 days each.
Before you go into space, you'll need to see our staff doctor.
You give your employees breakfast and you've got a doctor on staff? No wonder your little mom-and-pop delivery company is always in financial trouble, Professor. Now, Zoidberg clearly doesn't get paid very much, and we find out the real reason the Professor keeps him around in the Season 8 episode The Tip of the Zoidberg. But still, the Professor is bad at money.
Hiya! Dr. Zoidberg, this is Fry.
Excellent, excellent.
All three characters in this scene are voiced by Billy West, who auditioned for pretty much every character in the show, including Bender, which is a role he didn't get. And while he did land the roles of Zoidberg, Professor Farnsworth, and Zap Brannigan, he wasn't given the role of Fry until a later casting change. Of all the voices he does on the show, Fry's is most similar to West's actual voice, and he has admitted that part of the reason he did it this way is so that he'd be harder to replace.
Really?
I have always wondered what's on this card that Zoidberg pulls out of his pocket. What am I missing here? Did they cut something out, or is this a reference to something?
Young lady, I'm an expert on humans.
Tip of the Zoidberg also reveals that Zoidberg is actually a good doctor for non-humans, but as far as I know, it's never explained why he thinks he's an expert on humans. I want to see that episode, please. Make it happen, Hulu.
Hey, rich girl, I'm being entertaining. La la la, look at my head.
I'd comment on the use of paper cash in the year 3000, except it would be pretty much identical to what I said about the VCR earlier in the episode, so instead I'll ask, what's going on here? Are Bender's head and body two separate entities when they're separated? Why does the body have to communicate with a hand signal when it's done stealing the money?
I'm gonna be a famous hero, just like Neil Armstrong and those other brave guys no one ever heard of.
Yeah, but Buzz Aldrin went on to appear on Futurama, so who really won that contest?
Can I do the countdown?
Huh? Oh, sure. Knock yourself out.
10, 9.
Okay, we're here.
Fry's charming ignorance of the ways of the future is one of the best parts of these early episodes, but in all fairness to him, they did do a countdown in the previous episode. They even have that gizmo that starts at 11 and counts down to 10. Where did that thing go?
Hurry up, I want to see the moon.
Relax. It's open till 9.
Which time zone, Leela? Which time zone? Or do you mean 9 o'clock on the moon, in which case, what?
Ow!
The keys are on this side of the magnet and get set down squarely on the metal plate on top of the crate. Somehow they become detached from the magnet, are not sandwiched against the metal plate, and slip inside the crate while only a couple inches from the magnet, even though the magnet pulled them out of Amy's pocket from this far away just a few seconds ago. What I'm saying is, this cartoon about Cyclops pilots and lobster doctors has questionable physics, yo.
I am Fry, from the planet Earth.
Wise guy, huh?
Here's the first appearance of Sal, voiced by John DiMaggio, the voice of Bender. This is the last time we'll see him until the Season 2 episode Put Your Head on My Shoulders, where he will look a little different, before eventually resuming this appearance in later episodes. Over the course of the series, we'll see him work an implausible number of jobs, leading to the question, is Sal really just one guy? Is he a race of clones, or transporter duplicates, or is he just a lazy guy who gets fired a lot? Let me know what you think. Sound off in the comments.
I'm Craterface.
Oh, Tress McNeil. Is there any character you can't voice?
I'll have to confiscate your alcohol, sir.
But if alcohol powers a robot's fuel cells and they become intoxicated without it, isn't this like the mascot handing a beer to a human patron? By the way, perhaps you're feeling like this Craterface character reminds you of something, but you just can't put your finger on it. That's how I felt the first time I saw this. This character, including the bottle in the eye, is a reference to this iconic and somewhat disturbing scene from the 1902 short film A Trip to the Moon. However, after finding it online and watching it, I'm pretty sure I've never seen this before. Talk about nightmare fuel. So I'm fairly certain that whatever this Futurama parody reminded me of was itself a parody of the original.
I got you guys refrigerator magnets.
Get it off! Get it off! How many roads?
And thus began the recurring theme of magnets shorting out Bender's inhibition unit and revealing his secret desire to be a folk singer, which is A, apparently the only thing Bender is inhibited about, and B, central to some of the best Bender-centric episodes in the series. You could not do this on any other show, and that's part of why this one's my favorite. By the way, this text written in Alien Language 1 translates to Tasty Human Burgers.
Bender! Hey, Bender! Over here! Oh, geez, I went to high school with that guy.
And did he look just like that, or was he modified into a stationary animatronic after he got the job at Luna Park? And if he and presumably the other animatronics are full-fledged robots, why are they bolted in place and running on tracks instead of doing full performances with song and dance numbers? You know, the kind of things Bender is capable of?
The story of lunar exploration started with one man.
One of these days, Alice, bang, zoom, straight to the moon.
That's not an astronaut, it's a TV comedian. And he was just using space travel as a metaphor for beating his wife.
Did Fry eat a truck stop sandwich before this? Because that was a surprisingly articulate and insightful statement. In any case, I have to ask, how do they have record of Jackie Gleason saying this on The Honeymooners, but not any of the records or reporting or footage of the actual first moon landing? Incidentally, I tried to find a clip of this line from the original show, but turns out it doesn't exist. A number of variations of bang, zoom, and to the moon were said through the show's run as a type of running joke, but the full line, that many people quote in its entirety, was never actually said.
Wow, I could swear I was really playing virtual skee-ball.
So this helmet is giving Amy the perception that she's wearing the required equipment to play virtual skee-ball, which we can see from the previous guy involves this helmet and this arm thing. But the transparent visor and the clearly marked spot on the floor to stand suggest that this is not a full VR setup, but actually an augmented reality system that's projecting a virtual skee-ball machine into his field of vision. So the virtual skee-ball helmet is able to create the perception that she's wearing a virtual skee-ball headset, which is then in turn projecting a skee-ball machine into her field of vision. And if that wasn't weird enough, her brain is somehow transmitting signals to tell the helmet when she wants to move her arm and throw the ball without actually moving her arm. So when she goes to take the helmet off, how does the helmet know that she wants to do that for real and not just virtually take off the virtual skee-ball helmet? Ow, my brain hurts from that one. I knew I should have just gone with, why does it have eye holes? I speak exactly 0 Chinese, so this was difficult to figure out. But according to my super scientific late-night research, even people who claim to speak the language fluently seem to have trouble understanding what Amy says when she rants in Chinese throughout the series, and there's even some disagreement about whether she's supposed to be speaking Mandarin or Cantonese or some hybrid of both. So after consulting a bunch of 15-year-old forum threads and punching things I didn't understand into online translators, I've come up with my own very terrible translation. As far as I can tell, is a threat to beat someone to death, contains words for most, good, and you, and when the words for most and good are combined, it can mean better or best, which makes sense, and her exclamation at the beginning literally means oops. So in my head, she's saying, oops, I'd better beat you to death, which to me is pretty funny. So they fun-imagined that the first moon astronauts were whalers, but they somehow know what the actual moonlander looks like. This is just getting more and more confusing. Almost as confusing as why they put these backdrops containing stars and a moon landscape in front of the actual stars and moon landscape.
I died doing what I loved.
Isn't this the guy that Bender said he went to high school with? But he's got a completely different voice. And isn't this him as well? Okay, I think I get it. They're robot actors playing characters, and those characters are very clunky animatronics at an amusement park. Oh, this doesn't make any sense.
Now I'll give you 10 minutes. Then you'll get bored, turn around, and apologize for being such a jerk.
Impulsive, yes. Irresponsible, definitely. But in what sense is Fry being a jerk here? Layla takes her job way too seriously.
How about we go look for the original moon landing site?
That's crazy. It's been lost for centuries.
The moon's surface area is about 37.9 million square kilometers, but even if you limit your search to the side facing the Earth, you're still searching an area about 2.5 times the size of Australia. Of course, with satellites and such, it shouldn't be that hard for people who are smarter than Fry to find the moon landing site, but we've already established this doesn't make sense, so let's just move on.
It's every man for himself! Help me, Leela!
I take it back. Fry is a jerk. You're probably expecting me to question the physics of this, but whatever. What I am going to question is, what are they panicking about, since she is clearly standing on something?
Come on, it's just like making love. You know, left, down, rotate 62 degrees, engage rotor.
Engage rotor on its own would have been funny. Bender spinning his hand while saying engage rotor deserves a Nobel Prize in comedy. We've got a 4-for-1 of video game reference jokes in this scene. In the background, there's dodecapede, gender-neutral pack person, and mortal cooperation. Plus, there's the Moon Patrol guys, which are themselves a reference to Moon Patrol.
Looky here, city girl. Oxygen don't grow on trees.
I see what you did there.
And them spacesuits ain't heated, so you ain't going nowhere till sunrise.
They must have wicked cooling, though, because they've been on the surface for a while now, and during the day, the lunar surface can get well above the boiling point of water.
Robot daughters? This here is Lulu Bell 7.
Likely a reference to the Liberty Bell 7 spacecraft.
Daisy May 128K.
Possibly a reference to the Apple Macintosh 128K.
And the Crushinator.
Definitely a clear reference to...
Your mother.
The park was too phony. We had to see the real moon.
And it was great. We got to see craters and rocks and that one incredible rock that looked like a crater and...
Rocks and trees and rocks and water.
Forgive the self-indulgence. I couldn't resist the urge to insert a little Canadiana. It won't happen again. Well, maybe once.
And these fellas.
You're milking it, Fry. If it's a fella, then, well, the show's rating should be a notch or two higher.
The moon is a dump, and the only reason anybody ever comes here is for the tacky little amusement park.
But why, though? If there's a profitable amusement park with gift shops selling all kinds of lunarcana, the moon must hold some kind of appeal. And we already know it's not the history, so, well, I guess it'll remain a mystery. The Buggalo eat hay?
God darn it, Crushinator, jump!
You're getting out of the car to tell her this? If she jumps now, you're gonna be left behind, buddy.
I really ought to do something. But I am already in my pajamas.
And there it is, the second and final time we will hear this catchphrase, at least for the duration of the original run and that first renewal and then that other renewal and then that other extension of the renewal. And you know what? It's just easier to say pre-season 11, so I'm going to go with that. And that's broadcast season, not production season, because the first 10 broadcast seasons of Futurama were created in 7 production seasons because they just had to make it difficult for future YouTubers to keep all of this straight.
Look! It's the moon landing site. We found it.
It was this close to the amusement park the whole time? Okay, these Luna Park people are either just lazy or they're pathologically driven to reinvent source material. Or both. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and assume they're a Disney subsidiary.
Isn't this the greatest thing you've ever seen?
It's just a crummy plastic flag and a dead man's tracks in the dust.
Okay, time out. I need to take a moment to marvel at Futurama's character development here. Watching these scenes now in the context of everything that happens in later seasons makes me realize just how much both of these two change over the years, while at the same time remaining the flawed, lovable characters that we were first introduced to. Neither one of them deserves the other at this point. He's immature, selfish, and lazy, and she has serious anger issues along with being selfish and incredibly superficial. But then we get scenes like this.
I still don't get what the big attraction is.
1,000 years ago, I used to look up at the moon and dream about being an astronaut. The moon was like this awesome, romantic, mysterious thing, hanging up there in the sky where you could never reach it, no matter how much you wanted to. I guess I just wanted you to see it through my eyes.
And as they continue to learn to see the world through each other's eyes/eye, they start to bring out the best in each other. The show has heart, damn it, and I'm convinced that's why it has such a dedicated fan base so many years after cancellation. Heaven help me if we get to that dog episode. Oh, great. I had to go and think about it. No, I'm fine. Just put something on the screen. Okay, I'm better.
Had to come back for the Crushinator, eh, robot? Well, I got you this time.
In the Season 8 episode, The Silence of the Clamps, the crew returns to the moon and encounters a robot that looks and acts like a hillbilly-ish version of Bender, so much so that they think it is Bender pretending to be someone else. This robot lives on the moon farm and is married to and has a child with the Crushinator. What a coincidence. Or is it? My theory? This moon hillbilly runs into the hillbilly version of Bender, mistakes him for this Bender, and forces him at shotgun point to marry the Crushinator. Hillbilly Bender just goes along with it because, well, if you're familiar with that episode, you'll understand why that makes a lot of sense. And if you're not familiar with that episode, well, go watch it. What are you doing? Well, actually, finish watching this, and then hit the like button and subscribe and leave a comment, and then go watch it.
Amy? Where'd she learn to operate the controls like that?
My question would be, where the heck did she learn to fly the ship? Also, they managed to make a B-plot out of Amy learning to use the claw machine. And somehow that's as funny as any of the jokes in this episode. And finally, this is definitely an I see what you did there moment, but it's more than just a joke. They actually added this sign late in production because they realized, oh, right, the Moonlander would have taken off when the astronauts left. We'd better stick a sign in there to make sure this all makes sense. Otherwise, the believability of this whole episode might come to a grinding halt. Hey, thanks for joining me for the overthinking session of episode 2. The series has landed, one of my favorite Futurama episodes, a great episode of TV overall. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments. Like and subscribe, and I will see you for iRoommate next.